The NFL trade deadline has passed, and the Broncos made 0 moves, which if I told you that a few weeks ago, no way you believe me. I wouldn't have believed myself. But indeed, the Broncos held on to all their players. They were not buyers nor sellers. They took the day off. They didn't even know the NFL trade deadline happened today. So my initial reaction, I wish they got some picks. Like, I understand the prisoner of the moment feel of winning 2 games in a row, beating the Chiefs, feeling like you can hang with the best of them in the AFC, wanting to keep it together, trying to put together a good second half run. But I'm sorry, call me a non-believer. I look at this team as a 3-5 team in last place in the AFC West. So yeah, if they could have gotten some good draft picks for good players, I would have played ball. I think that would have been a better move if you think long-term and past just what's best for 2023. If they were 5-3, totally different conversation. They wouldn't be sellers. But they're not 5-3. They're 3-5. And I wish they got some more draft ammunition because I think they are going to need it in 2024. Now, Jerry Jeudy, probably the hottest name on the market at the wide receiver position that was actually getting some traction, did not get traded, obviously. And the love cycle continues with Jerry Jeudy, right? The Broncos picked up his 5th-year option. That does not mean that they are tied to him necessarily for 2024. Like, they could trade him. But here's the deal. I've seen some chatter on Twitter about, like, standing pat was a good move for Denver, right? If things go well the rest of the season, you'll be happy to have them. And if they don't go well and you finish the season winning 6, 7, or 8 games and they miss the playoffs or whatever, well, you can trade them then. I'm going to push back on that thought because Jerry Jeudy's value might not ever be this high again. Let's go back to his stats for a moment, Trace, could we? Look at Jerry Jeudy's numbers so far this year. Like, blind resume here. If I say this guy's got 336 yards and 1 touchdown, what's his trade value? You probably don't say a first or second rounder. But Denver could have gotten potentially a second rounder, right? I mean, this is the part of the trade deadline where I say probably, because I don't know for sure. I was not the one taking calls, but reports were out there that Denver got a good offer for Jerry Jeudy. And they did not take it. So if you're in the camp of, well, if things don't work out this year, it's okay, we can still trade them later. Yeah, come back to me in March. Jerry Jeudy's trade value might not be that high ever again. Same goes for Courtland Sutton. Like, Courtland Sutton is having a phenomenal year. He's still young. He's still got a lot of good years left in the tank. But the guy's got 6 touchdowns already. That ties a single season high. After 2 straight years of 4 touchdowns combined, sue me for thinking maybe sell high on a guy that unfortunately has not been a part of a lot of winning in Denver and unfortunately hasn't really been able to be a key part of the Broncos' winning success. And so if a team out there wants to give you a good draft pick while he's having the best year of his NFL career and got that big contract which you could get off of your books, that seems like a pretty good win-win to me. Now, maybe you can trade Courtland Sutton after the year. Things don't go well, and you still want to move on from him because you want to get that contract off your books. But come back to me in March on Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy's trade value. Maybe LB Cold Takes, Old Takes exposed, but their value is pretty high right now. It's hard to get much higher, right? So if you don't trade them now, you are rolling the dice that they are going to either be long-term pieces or keep that value up, and you could still trade them after the season if you wanted to. We'll have to wait and see if that's an option for Denver. But let me know, should the Broncos have made a trade, yes or no? I wish they did. I just don't think this 2023 Broncos team is going to do a lot of damage. I'm not sorry. They started off 1-5. I just can't get that out of my head very quickly after 2 wins at home, which, granted, the Chiefs win was awesome. It was terrific. I wouldn't trade that away. But I wonder if that Chiefs win is something we look back on in 6 months of, we won, but at what cost? Because then we held on to all these players, and after the season, their value went way down. And when you could have gotten a second for Jerry Jeudy, you ended up trading for him for a 4th because he ended the year with 700 yards and 2 touchdowns. And no one wants to take on a nearly $13 million guaranteed contract for 2024. Now, I say all this, and I can admit it's difficult to judge from the dark. And that's where we are right now, in the dark, right? We don't know what the offers were. It's not like we get a big PDF coming out of every phone call made to Mile High and what the offers were for Jerry Jeudy, and we can go, that was a good one, that was a bad one, I'm glad they declined that. We don't know. But I have a good feeling that there were some offers made for at least Jerry Jeudy or Courtland Sutton. And they were probably substantial offers. We'll run through all the NFL trades that were made today, and I just feel like Denver is going to regret this move. Now, before we get on to the rest of today's show, it is being supported by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, ladies and gentlemen, is a daily fantasy sports app where all you have to do is pick more or less for 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. Prize Picks is super simple and user-friendly. I spend 1 to 2 minutes on the app every Sunday morning making my selections. So if you're in the Oval Office or you're on your way to the game, get on Prize Picks and start making some money. So for this week on Prize Picks, I'm going with the less on Tua Tagovailoa's 286.5 passing yards. It'll be a little bit tough going across the pond and throwing the ball that much. And then I got the more on Patrick Mahomes. I'm just smelling a big bounce back game from him at 295.5 yards. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. The link for that, by the way, is in the comments and description of today's video. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. So remember when I was talking about Jerry Jeudy and whether or not Denver should have or could have taken an offer? Well, we did get this report. Now, it's from Mike Florio at Pro Football Talk, where he says the Broncos have a good offer. To me, a good offer would be a second to third round draft pick. Now, I can understand maybe not wanting to deal him for a third, but if you could have gotten a second for Jerry Jeudy, when you already don't have a second round pick, by the way, because you traded that for Sean Payton, and you only have 1 third round pick because you were so desperate to move up in the draft so you could draft a corner who's not even active on the game days anymore. Well, anytime you can do that, you have to. But for now, here we are, October 31st, past the 4 p.m. Eastern trade deadline, and we only have one option. It's win. Like, there's no more selling. There's no fire sale. There's no blow it up anymore. The only option for the Broncos moving forward is to win. And if they don't win, it's going to be a disaster on 2 fronts. Front number 1, this year was supposed to be a lot better than last year. So far, they've won 3 games. They won 5 all of last year. So they're on pace to get to 6 games, but you're not giving yourself a lot of wiggle room, and you're not raising the bar all that much. And then the second front is you might have had an opportunity to make some really good trades for the team moving forward in the future, but you decided to go all in on this season, hold on to these players, and before you say, but you can still trade them after the year, you better hope their value is that high. Because with every snap that gets played, the risk of an injury goes up, the potential of a team not having interest in them because their stats decline, that is definitely something to keep in mind. So all we can do right now is rally around winning, which I don't say it's a bad thing at all, but for a team that hasn't won a whole lot lately, that's a big risk. That's a big if. And I haven't seen enough from this team to believe they are capable of doing that. So with that being said, let's kind of run through all the trades that did go down today and over the past week or so. Leonard Williams sent from New York to Seattle. Good for the Seahawks. I mean, they're 5-2. They feel like they can win. They're in first place in the NFC West. I think they probably overpaid a little bit based on what some of the other edge rushers and defensive linemen went for. A 2nd and a 5th was a bit steep. But if they can re-sign Leonard Williams, I mean, clearly they're not getting a whole lot of Draymond Jones. Otherwise, they would have done that. They would not have done that. So, no, I'm not petty at all. I'm not petty. A trade that I thought could have included Justin Simmons was the Eagles trading for a safety. Instead, they went with Kevin Byard. This was like a week ago or so. But if that's what safeties are going for, then I'm happy they held on to Justin Simmons because he means more to this team than what a 5th and a 6th rounder can do. A trade that did go down yesterday afternoon was another Eagles trade. Contavious Street, the defensive lineman, So Grady Jarrett, the Falcons defensive tackle, tore his ACL, and the Atlanta Falcons need a new DT. So a little day 3 pick swap. The big trade that started the day today, though, was Montez Sweat going from the Commanders to the Bears. We'll circle back on the Commanders in a little bit when we talk about Chase Young, but initial reaction to this one is the timing's not right for Chicago. You are not in a win-now mode, and it's not like a Montez Sweat trade signals that necessarily, but it definitely puts you on that path because you feel like, hey, a second rounder in exchange for a guy who's almost 30 years old, getting to that point in his career, and we have to give a 4 to 5 year, $100 million contract extension to. Well, those are the moves you kind of make when you're rebuilding. Don't you agree? So to me, giving up a second rounder, just wasn't a good time for the Bears to do that. A quarterback trade that went down, though, was Josh Dobbs going from the Cardinals to the Minnesota Vikings. I thought the Vikings might trade for Trey Lance just to kind of kick the tires on him, see if he could be their starting quarterback moving forward. There's been a lot of murmurs and rumors between Lance and the Vikings ever since the draft, really. So, unfortunately for Vikings fans that were looking forward to a Trey Lance homecoming, they get Josh Dobbs, the astronaut. Another trade that involved the Minnesota Vikings was Ezra Cleveland going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. What a big win for Ezra Cleveland. Like, you go from a 500 team without a quarterback to you get to go live in Jacksonville, which, hey, shout out to Duval, but you got to get to leave Minneapolis on October 31st and go down to the beach. That's a good time to make that scenery change. But the big trade of the day, I would say the biggest name probably, was Chase Young going to the 49ers for a 2024 comp third-round pick. So in case you're not really up to speed on how NFL draft picks work, you got 32 picks, unless you're the cheating Dolphins, in the first round, 32 picks in the second round, 32 picks to start the third round, and then they start giving out compensatory picks. Comp picks for dummies. If you lose guys in free agency, the NFL awards you the next year with a comp pick. If another team hires a minority coach from your team, you get a comp pick in return. So stuff like that is where comp picks come from. And it's not even a top 32 pick in the third round. The former second overall pick goes for way less than what his teammate Montez Sweat went for. So I've seen a lot of Broncos fans saying, that's all it costs for Chase Young. Why didn't we offer up our third round pick? It would have been a better third round pick because it would have been Denver's actual third round pick compared to a comp pick. So one in the first 32 selections of round 3 compared to picks 33 to 50 of round 3. But I guess Denver ultimately decided they did not want to roll the dice on getting Chase Young, most likely extending him because you don't give up a second or third round pick unless you feel like they are somewhere you want to have long term. And with him on the last year of his contract, that could probably be coming down the wire. But they don't have a third. Well, they have 1/3. They don't have 2/3. They used up 1/3 to get Riley Moss, and they used their second to get Sean Payton. So Sean Payton did not want to go into next year's draft with just one first-round pick for the first 2 days of the draft. They only have 6 picks total in the entire 2024 NFL draft. And then the final trade, I think it was we got one more trade. Donovan Peoples-Jones, a Michigan legend, going back to the Wolverine State. He got traded from the Browns for a 2025 6th-round draft pick. And then the last trade, you're right, Rasul Douglas goes to the Buffalo Bills. We protect Pat Surtain at all costs, thank God, for a third-round pick and a 5th also going to Buffalo. So I think it's a pretty fair trade for both teams right there. Now, I do want to close the show by asking this question. What is your updated Broncos record prediction? They're sitting at 3-5. They held everyone. Is this a team that you think throughout the rest of the season can go out and win 6 or 7 more games, get to 9, get to 10 more wins? 9 wins last year got the Miami Dolphins the 7th and final playoff spot. Can this team go, 3-5, get to 9-8, go 6-3 over the next 9 games? I don't think so. Like, this team started off 1-5 for a reason. Like, you are what your record says you are. Sure, you get 0-3 Texans pop up every once in a while, something like that, but call me a non-believer, and if I'm wrong, make me eat shit in January. But if I'm right, remember who wasn't being a donkey rider and just saying anything that people wanted them to hear. So unfortunately, I'm just not all in on this team going to the playoffs this year or anything like that.